Hi everybody! Today I'm going to be trying to make sweet rolls from the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I'll be using a recipe from Chelsea Monroe-Cassel's The Elder Scrolls Official Cookbook. I would highly recommend getting this book if you're an Elder Scrolls fan and love to try cooking or baking new things. Anyways, let's get started! Alright, I started off by warming up some milk to activate my yeast in. I couldn't use water here because the recipe doesn't actually have any water in it, so I just went with milk. I also used fat-free milk because I personally like the taste better and it's also all we had, so I just went with that. I would recommend using a milk with higher fat if you like the taste better. My optimal temperature range to activate the yeast was about 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. As you can tell, I used a thermometer because I absolutely do not trust myself to estimate how warm the milk is getting, because I want it to be exactly right, because I feel like if you're off at all, the yeast won't activate, and I don't want to do that, so I made sure that it was exactly in that range. And now I'm adding the yeast in. I used one packet here, which was slightly more than what was needed for the recipe, but in the end I don't think that it made that big of a difference. I was also really fortunate because last year I did an experiment that involved yeast, so I just had a lot of yeast packets sort of lying around at home. So I used honey to activate the yeast, and I'm not gonna lie, I got really worried really fast. It might have been 5 minutes and I didn't see any changes at all in the yeast, but luckily, as you see in this clip, the yeast did eventually start bubbling, so everything was good, it was activated, and I just had to wait a few more minutes. Now it's time to make our dough. I started off by adding in some honey, and this was a little bit more honey than what the recipe called for, but I really wanted that honey flavor to be prominent throughout the sweet roll, so that's why I added in that little extra bit. The honey that I'm using is a wildflower honey. It's supposed to be more natural and have less sugar in it, but honestly I really just like the taste of it, so that's why I used it. Next, I added in the softened butter. It's really important that your butter is softened because it just makes mixing it together so much easier. If you just pop the butter in the microwave for a few seconds, it should definitely do the trick. Using unsoftened butter can just be really annoying because the butter will be all chunky and it won't really mix together that well. Next, I added in the mixture with warm milk and yeast, and then I mixed all of it together. After that, I added a pinch of salt and an egg and I mixed it all together. Now I needed to add in the flour. It's really important to add flour in by increments to make sure you get the right consistency that you want, but after a while I got a little impatient and kind of just dumped the flour in, and I lucked out by getting the exact consistency that I wanted to, so that was awesome. Don't do that though. If you're ever making this, definitely add it in by increments. Do it slowly and be patient. And now I'm pouring the mixture into a small bundt cake pan. There's enough mixture to fill in about 4 of the molds, so I just chose the 4 that I thought looked most like a sweet roll. Now, I just need to leave the dough to rise. See y'all in 30 minutes. Alright, I'm back. It seems like the dough has risen quite a bit, so I think it's ready to be put in the oven. Alright, so while waiting for the rolls to bake, I started on my frosting. I did this by adding in cream cheese, butter, and powdered sugar into a bowl and mixing it all together. Then I needed to add in my heavy whipping cream. I needed to do this by increments, but then again, I just sort of poured it all in at once and didn't follow the recipe, which might have messed up the consistency just slightly, but you know, it was fine in the end. It tasted good. Once the timer was up, I used a toothpick test to see if the rolls were ready to come out or not, and they were. When I put the toothpick in and I pulled it out, it was completely clean, meaning I could take the rolls out of the oven. Also, I really didn't have the right equipment for icing the sweet rolls, so I made a little makeshift setup. So unfortunately, only 2 out of the 4 sweet rolls survived. 2 got stuck to the pan because I didn't use enough non-stick spray, but I'll still be icing the 2 that remained. And because of how thick the frosting is, I'm using a spoon to help spread it across the sweet roll. Also, I won't talk too much during this part so y'all can watch the process. Et voila, here are our sweet rolls. I'm honestly super happy with how these turned out, especially after I thought they were ruined when 2 of them got stuck to the bundt pan and came out in crumbles. I still learned a lot from this experience though, like 1, you need to be patient, and 2, You need to add things in intervals when it says to add them in intervals, or else the consistency of things will be very, very weird. Still, I had a lot of fun experimenting with this, and I learned a lot. Anyways, I hope you all learned something new and had a fun time watching. I really appreciate your support and encourage you to try this recipe on your own time. These sweet rolls turned out tasting so ridiculously good. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you later, and keep an eye on the sweet rolls. We don't want anyone stealing them.